All right, we are live. Let me do my quick audio checks just to make sure things are looking okay. And while we do that, let me play some music in the background as well. So we have some music to accompanying this. Always nice to have some music when you're coding. And this will be a pretty short session today. While we do that. Okay, cool. So it is working on audio. Let's start jumping in. Try to engage the community a little bit as well. If you guys are tuning in on a nice Sunday fun day to join me in some coding, let me know in the chat. Your name, where you're from, what you're interested in learning, things like that. But want to do a quick session about FastAPI because one of the best ways to learn anything is by teaching. And so today I'm going to do a very basic demo of what I've been learning in the last probably few weeks, which is a framework for creating web apps, specifically our APIs, using a Python library called FastAPI. Super fun. I'm going to show you the basics of doing one from scratch and then show you a finished project I did yesterday, which is integrating it with Google OAuth. And it'll make more sense once we get into it. But it's been on my list for a while to do this integration with OAuth, and it's super fun. If you're not familiar with FastAPI or web apps in general, one of the things, there's two things I'm building with it. I'll probably build more in the future. I built a to-do app a couple weeks ago. Let me share that so you can see what that looks like. So here's an example of a to-do app. And so this is built with FastAPI and basically allows me to interact with some system. And so in this case, this to-do app, I can say, clean dishes, example description. I can do laundry, and then you can delete them. So this was built with FastAPI, and basically every time you interact with it, it will go and create things, update things, or delete things. And then another thing I'm building with FastAPI is a fire terminology server, which I'll share more in the future. That one gets a little more into the weeds, but super fun. I really enjoyed learning FastAPI. And I think when I was thinking about web apps in the past with Python, it was always like the Django or Flask. But FastAPI is just a new kid on the block. And so I decided to learn that. All right, let's jump into some coding so you can see what it's like to build with FastAPI. Let me share my screen. I'm going to start with a brand new project and start this from scratch. And you can see how quick it is, how fast it is, and how fun it is to actually create. So I'm going to create a new project over here. Go here, and then I'm going to do a say demo FastAPI. Cool. So a brand new project. I'm going to go down into the terminal. What we're going to start off with first, and bear with me because some of this I am still learning over here. Let me change my screen so you can see it better as well. I think I want to do something like this. There you go. Okay, so a little larger. So I'm gonna deactivate Conda. And the first thing we want to do in this case, oops, looks like I lost my screen. One second. Okay, let's get this back. Yeah, go back here. Okay, cool. So the first thing you want to do is I'm going to create the requirements. And in Python, we also want to do a virtual environment because it manages our dependencies really well. And so I'm going to do requirements.txt. That creates a new file for me up here. And then I'm just going to type in the things that I'm going to install. So I have FastAPI because that's what we're building. Unicorn, which is like the server that runs our API. This will be for later. Is this auth library? And this is when we connect to OAuth2 with Google. There is a python.env. This is not needed for demo. Not needed for demo. You would need these when you're doing the integration with OAuth. And then we have Jinja2, which is the front end HTMLs that we serve up to people to kind of display what we're building here. So it's the front end of our API. All right, so we have a requirements, and then now we're going to do the virtual environment. And so the virtual environment is Python-m virtual environment. I'm going to call it env. Now we have this virtual environment here. And I'm going to install all those requirements that I just laid out in my virtual environment. But first, I need to actually activate my virtual environment. So I need to do source env bin activate. So now I can tell I'm in my virtual environment because I have this parentheses with env in front. Now I'm going to install my dependencies. So pip install r requirements.txt. There you go. So everything gets installed in my virtual environment over here. That is good. And then the first thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to then start creating my FastAPI app. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new directory for app. So I have this app directory. I'm going to add this main file.py. And I am going to start creating my FastAPI. So first thing you do is you want to import FastAPI object from FastAPI. You're going to define your FastAPI object here, app. So this is, I now have my new app for FastAPI. And all it is just basically routes. Whenever you're interacting with the API, there's like, this is like the URL, where you want to go. And so the first thing you usually do is you define like a home page where you're going to start off with. And so in this case, let me zoom in, make this a little easier. Too much. Okay. So I'm going to define my very first route, which is just a home page. So I have my home page here. And then I am going to call it index. And then I am, just for testing purposes, going to do a return hello world. And this is going to be my API. So whenever I visit this homepage, I will get this return hello world. So next, what I want to do is I want Unicorn to render this. And to do that, I am going to create a new file over here, main.py. And this is where my main file is going to be to run my API. So I have Unicorn, which will do that if name equal main unicorn.run. And I have my app that I just created, main. This is where it's located. Host, I'm going to run this locally, localhost. and import is 8,000, and then reload so that every single time I make changes in the code, it's just going to update automatically for me. And there we go. And that is all you need to get started with a FastAPI web app. So let me just give this a try, make sure this works. Go to the screen. Python 3 main API. Cool. So now I have it running on localhost. I can actually do a curl just to check here. Conda deactivate. Let's do a curl HTTP. It's localhost 8000, and there we go. We have localhost 8000. If I go back here, you can actually see it as well. I'm just gonna pop open this web page so you can see what that looks like. Let me share my screen on that page real quick. So it is here, and so, oh, I don't think you can actually see my URL address bar. So yeah, so this is really ugly. Yeah, so you can, it's blocked by, I don't actually know how to get rid of that. Oops. How do you get rid of that screen? Yeah, I have no idea how to get rid of that screen. Anyways, it looks like that. Oh, there we go. It looks a little better. So this is when I type in my URL, HTTP localhost 8000. So now my API works. Now let's add a couple of other things to it. So let me share my screen back again of VS Code. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a front end. So we're gonna add some HTML to this. Okay. And so to do that, the first thing we're gonna do is add a, let me stop this real quick. New directory for templates. And this is where our HTML will live. So in my templates, I am going to create a new file called home.html. And then we can just HTML, grab a template. This is going to be the title. This is my FastAPI web app. And then I'm just going to copy this over from some previous stuff I have. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of this image because we don't have that right now. So hopefully this works. So this is my front end that will be rendered when I run localhost next time. And now I need to connect that up to my main app. So in my FastAPI app, what I'm going to do is I'm going to additionally import request, and then I am going to do from FastAPI.templating import Jinja2, which is the library that allows us to render these HTML templates. All right, and then I need to scroll down to define our templates. So these are our Jinja2 templates. The directory of where those files live is in that new directory we just created, which is called templates. And then this time, when someone visits our localhost or our website, we are going to return the HTML instead of just a static hello world. So what we're going to do is return. It's going to be templates.template response. And then the name is equal to home.html, which is the HTML file we just created. We have context, and this is equal to request. And this is a request, and I forgot to actually add up here. So request is like when you're in this like you're sending a HTTP request to go and get this website. So we actually define it up here. And this is the request object from FastAPI. And so this is so they know all the information associated when you pass your client information over to retrieve I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. This is why I'm still learning. You send a request over, and then this HTML website can render it, grab the information from your request session, and then render different things. So I think that's going to be the best I'm going to explain it. Okay, hopefully this works. I think that should be it. So let me give this a try. Okay. Let me go check out the website to see if this works. And then looks like it does. Let me share my screen. So where's my screen? Here it is. Okay. So now when I type in localhost, it shows me the HTML website that I just created. And then it also has a link to this sign in with Gmail, which is not ready yet because you have to create a route for it. And typically here you would create a route for login that would then redirect you to the Google authorization workflow. Let me stop sharing real quick. And so what I'm going to actually show next is not continual build. I just want to show you what FastAPI was like. And this time I'm going to show you my finished web app, which I think it's this one. Here it is. So this is the finished one I did with, let me stop running my other one though first. Control C and close this one. Okay. And then in this one, same requirements, as you can see. Let me make this bigger real quick. So yeah, same requirements. The main file to run Unicorn is also the same. I have my environmental variables here, which is actually the client ID and client secret for my app that's registered on Google Cloud Console. Only takes a few minutes to do. I'm not going to show that here because it's specific to my implementation. I'm not going to do that. And then here are different HTML websites. So here is a homepage that this is where they land. This is a welcome page after they log in. This is where they'll be redirected to. And then if the credentials are wrong, you actually see an error web page. So this is kind of basically your front end for the API. There's a static folder here for different images and things you can add to it. So I have an avatar and then I actually don't know what this, it just like formats the pictures. And then this is my virtual environment. And then this is my app. There's a config that will basically take my environmental variables, which is from this .env file, which is the client ID and client secret, and it'll pass it over to my main file, which this is where I have everything implemented. You use Starlet to manage sessions because the sessions will expire, and then when it expires, you have to request a new token and relog in and all over again. And then here is the integration with Google OAuth. So there's a couple of additional things you added here. This stuff is for managing sessions and then also my static directory for my pictures. This is the piece you need to add in for Google OAuth. So more or less the same, you just have these things that are more dynamic that you need to change. This is for me running localhost. So that's all you need to set up. The templates is still there. And then we have a couple of additional routes here. So in this case, this is the homepage when you first start. This is just saying if you're already logged in, it's always going to redirect you to this welcome page. And oops, down here, if it's your first time logging in, it will take you to this homepage. This is the welcome page. And then if you are not logged in, it'll take you back to the home page. The login page, this is when you click login. So if I go to static, oh, not static, it is templates and home. So when someone clicks sign in with Gmail, that I'll show you in just a bit, it'll redirect you to this login route. So if I go back here, this login route will basically take you to Google's authentication workflow, which is really nice. And then it'll make you do your whole OAuth process through them. And then this here would be If you are authorized by Google, then you can proceed to the welcome page to say that, hey, you've succeeded. And then if, whatever reason it didn't work, then it'll take you to this error web page. And then when you log out, it'll take you back to this homepage. And I'll show you what this now looks like once it's all implemented. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. So running, it is at localhost. And so I'm going to show you this. Let me stop sharing here and share this page. So this is my previous web app that's still displaying, but now I'm going to run localhost, which is now hosting this API with Google OAuth. And if I type in that URL, it actually brings me to my web app. So it looks like this. I have this. This is my welcome page, not my welcome. This is my home page. Has a little icon here, and then this will take me to login. As you can see at the very bottom, this is the login route. So when I click on this, it's gonna take me to Google's authentication workflow. So I'm gonna click this to ask me to choose one of my accounts to authenticate against. If I click on my account, it will say my test web app wants to access information about me, but it's gonna confirm who I am. Hit continue, and then this will now take me to my welcome page. And then in my welcome page, actually will display my name because I grabbed it from the login, and then my picture. And then you have the ability to log out. And when you log out, it'll just take you back to the very beginning. So hopefully that was interesting. This is how I spent my Saturday yesterday. Probably took maybe 2 or 3 hours to learn how to build that. Super fun though. And then as I learn more, I'll certainly teach these different sessions as it helps me learn as well. I think one of the next steps is to do integration with Stripe next. So you can do different OAuth logins with Google, but then subsequently check if a user is like on a free trial on a certain tier of subscriptions. And then depending on whether or not they paid, you won't or you will let them log into those different web pages afterwards to use your web app. All right, guys, hopefully this is fun. Certainly was fun for me.